fierce contest is underway to fill the Senate seat Marco Rubio is leaving. Two candidates are running in the Democratic primary, Patrick Murphy and Alan Grayson. Over on the Republican side, 5 candidates are running. And in the coming weeks, we plan to introduce you to all the candidates here on This Week in South Florida. Today, it's Republican Todd Wilcox of Orlando, a businessman and military veteran. Mr. Wilcox, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
All right, so it is a crowded field. You are one of 5 Republican candidates seeking the nomination. Why are you the best candidate?
I think the contrast is stark. I mean, if you look at the 2 issues that are going to define this election, it's national security and the economy. I've got 27 years of real-world experience in national security and the economy. Twice, led men into combat twice, served as an infantry officer in the 101st Airborne Division during Desert Storm, served as a Special Forces Green Beret, commanded 2 separate Special Forces A teams, 9 years in the CIA as an Arabic-speaking CIA case officer on the front lines of the global war on terrorism in the Middle East.
Yeah. And, you saw combat as a CIA officer,
as both an Army officer and as a CIA officer. And then for the last 10 years, I've been growing not 1, but 3 very successful businesses that operate in 6 different sectors of our economy in 14 countries around the world.
Right. I saw the Tampa Bay Times did a story about you recently, and they quoted you as saying in a speech, "We need to elect a warrior to Congress." Why does Congress need a warrior?
We need people with real-world experience. Our founding fathers envisioned a citizen government, not a career political class of career politicians and political insiders, and that's what we've gotten to. Yeah, if you look at the problems that face America, these are all symptoms. The disease is career politicians on both sides of the aisle. So I am the representative, the only representative in this crowded field of 3 career politicians and a political insider that represents a return to citizen government.
One of your rivals, opponents in the race for the GOP nomination is Representative Ron DeSantis. He's a military guy, was served in Iraq, so is he as qualified as you?
He's got a very respectable resume. Our service is different, and you know, you're shaped by the experiences of your life. Right. And so each of us have brought different experiences from our service in the military, and I respect his service as a Navy Reserve lawyer. The experiences he had and the mandate he has was Uniform Code of Military Justice and the Rules of Engagement. My experiences in the military were to close with and destroy the enemy. I led men in combat arms as an infantry officer and again as a Special Forces officer.
And you fired shots in anger.
Well, I led men into combat. There's differences there. For anybody that steps up to serve, and I respect his service, but there's different experiences that the 2 of us have drawn from our respective time in the service.
All right, so national security and the economy, and I think you're absolutely right, those are the top issues. How would you stimulate the economy? You've had a lot of success with your 3 different companies, one of which I see provides logistical support for supplies to very dangerous parts of the world like Libya and Afghanistan. But how do you apply that to the being a U.S. Senator?
I've grown 3 different businesses and created more than 600 jobs over the last 10 years. So I have the experience of having made payroll, understanding the very burdensome tax system that we have, the regulatory framework that is a wet blanket on job creators. I bring real-world experience to the table when it comes to running businesses in our economy and understanding how political decisions impact our economy. We've been growing at 1.5% to 2% GDP growth because of the regulatory environment that's been created. There's an attack on capitalism right now.
Well, I mean, some people would say just in the last week or so there's an attack on personal freedoms when the Obama administration says that school systems have to respect the rights of transgender people, that they may use the bathroom with the gender they identify with. Do you have problems with that?
I have problems with the federal government being that involved in issues that are clearly at the state. What you're seeing in that issue, it's not an LGBT issue. It's a states' rights issue. The 10th Amendment of the Constitution says that if it's not in the Constitution specifically, it's a state rights issue. The notion that this federal government, under the Obama administration, this hard left progressive policy and agenda would force a state to do something and leverage transportation money and education money, that goes to the fact that way out of bounds when it comes to our Constitution.
So is the state of North Carolina right? Do you think they have the right to, in fact, have passed this law that says that you must use the bathroom of the gender in which you were born?
Going to the issue, it seems common sense. Yes, I think they have the right. They passed legislation. The governor signed it. It's within the Constitution of North Carolina. Again, this is a states' rights issue. And, you know, the Silicon class and the Hollywood class that has stepped up to say, hey, we're going to boycott North Carolina, why don't they do the same thing to Saudi Arabia and China and the other places that they operate in where they make a lot of money, and those countries would execute you for being a homosexual? So it's hypocrisy. They should actually run for office.
Yeah. Let me ask you, talking about foreign policy, we live and we have close to Cuba, and we have roughly 1 million either Cubans or people of Cuban ancestry who live here in South Florida. Do you think that the Obama administration is right to have this initiative for opening diplomatic relations and possibly doing business, or they are doing business with Cuba?
And they've infused billions of dollars into the Cuban economy, and we've gotten next to nothing out of that deal. It's another example, along with the Iran nuclear deal, along with the disaster in Iraq, the problems we face on our national security and foreign policy front, another example of this president failing the American people. The first step should have been get our fugitives back. How many fugitives are harbored in Cuba, from American justice? That would have been the first step. We should lift our embargo when Castro lifts his embargo, an embargo on human rights, an embargo on liberty, an embargo on information.
Mr. Wilcox, Donald Trump is clearly going to be the Republican presidential nominee. Do you have any trouble appearing on the ballot if you are the Senate nominee in Florida?
Absolutely
with Donald
not.
Trump?
I'll stand shoulder to shoulder with him. He is our party's nominee, and the alternative is disastrous. We cannot afford, as a constitutional republic, another 4 to 8 years of hard left progressive policies.
And that's what Hillary Clinton would be?
That's certainly what Hillary Clinton would be.
You don't think she's more moderate in many ways than Mr. Obama?
Absolutely not. She will be an extension of the Obama administration. Yeah. She's made that clear, and she's even stated explicitly that she'll go well beyond his executive actions.
Well, in some areas, she would continue the DACA, the Dreamers program, among others. She has certainly said that. Let me ask you, one of your rivals, and I'll ask him when I have the chance, Carlos Baruf, a home builder from Bradenton, who got into the race, never run for office before. Well, you haven't either. He, in the last week, called President Obama, quote, an animal who wants to make this country into a country like any other country. Is that stepping over the line?
I don't think any Senate candidate should use name-calling. We have a very strong argument that we can make in the Republican Party in terms of our platform, in terms of, a free market economy, limited government, freedom and liberty. I think using childish antics and those kind of terms detract from a very valid argument that we have. Yeah. It detracts everybody's attention to the name calling. These are childish antics, and I think there's no place for it.
All right. Well, even in these few minutes, you have certainly kind of, I think, in a strong, unequivocal way, given us a sense of who Todd Wilcox is. But there are 5 candidates, and a lot of them have much more name recognition and a lot more money. You're not underfunded, but I don't think you've got as much money as some of these other candidates. How do you distinguish yourself?
There's a stark contrast. When people see the contrast, and when we stand side by side, they give me that feedback. And there's a contrast in motivation. I'm doing this out of frustration and desperation. They're doing this out of aspiration. There is a contrast in experience, 27 years of real-world experience in national security and the economy. And there's a contrast in substance. If you look at their websites and their issues, policy positions, you look at mine, you'll see that stark contrast. Well, and in terms of money, I have the second largest war chest right now of cash on hand. I've put $1 million of my own money into this campaign. I've got the means to do more, and I'm raising money. So when I get that message out, the people are resonating to that.
Yeah. Mr. Wilcox, you are positioning yourself as an outsider who's going to go and reform a stultified system that doesn't work very well, you believe in. In fact, it doesn't work all that well. And yet, a group has come forward in the last couple of days to form a super PAC for you. Now, they can't do that in coordination with your campaign, but having a super PAC kind of makes you just a regular politician, doesn't it?
Frankly, we've got to fight on a level playing field. I didn't have anything to do with it, unlike the other candidates that set up super PACs and then divorced themselves of it. I mean, that just smacks of circumvention. Right. This was something, I think, that illustrates the fact that when people hear my message, a message of return to citizen government, a return of real-world experience to governance, this is an illustration that that's taking hold. This is a movement, and I'm a part of that movement. I'm not the only one in the movement. I see it with Trump, and it's a movement spreading across America and across Florida, and it's fueled by this fatigue with career politicians. So the notion that individuals and outsiders have put together a super PAC, it just illustrates that people are fed up with what's going on, and they're willing to get behind a candidate that's got this kind of message, that's got this real-world experience.
That is Todd Wilcox, one of the 5 Republicans running for the U.S. Senate.
And next we take you to the street.